Get my 6. And while I drink it, I'm going to tell you a pretty creepy story. Now, this isn't my story, certainly one I can relate to, and you're going to understand why here in a minute. This is a story from a retired Army First Sergeant named David. He's married to a very beautiful Filipina lady named Regina. We met them down at the D-Day Memorial in Bedford, Virginia. Last week. It was spring break here for us, and we spent our week traveling around, going to DC for the Cherry Blossom Festival, went down to the D-Day Memorial, saw the Bon Jovi concert in Raleigh, North Carolina. Still recovering from last week. I figured pretty good way to recover a little bit more would be sit here and take a break from my gardening and yard work I'm doing under the ever watchful eye of my beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl. We all need a break, right? So why not take a coffee break and tell a story? So we happened to meet David and Regina down at the D-Day Memorial. And Dearly and Regina went off for a while looking at stuff together, speaking to each other in Tagalog. Actually, Visayan. Turns out this lady was from Mindanao as well. Same island, different city. So I sat and talked with David for a while. He's about 10 years older than me. Desert Storm veteran, did 20 plus, got his pension, been living happily ever after. He and his wife spend part of their time here in the U.S. and they spend part of their time in the Philippines. They have 2 children who are grown, so they have the freedom to come and go as they please, something Dearly and I are looking forward to someday. But for now, we're perfectly happy where we are. And frankly, I'd love it if my son would stay a child forever. So, with that said, story time. While David and I were talking, we were just kind of comparing and contrasting our experiences in the Philippines. David lived over there for many years himself, and like I said, he still goes back and forth. And we talked about this You know, I had no intentions of turning around and looking to see what's back here, but I'm hearing what sounds like tree knocks. And I heard what might have been a dog, but what might have been something else. So please make sure to get my 6 and watch back here. Timestamp anything you see. So anyway, we're talking about some of our weird experiences in the Philippines. And I've shared a few stories on this channel about experiences I had with a witch doctor. Talked about how my son's very first doctor visit ever when he was like 8 months old was to a witch doctor, and how freaky that was, and how, you know, I didn't really believe what was going on, but I kept it to myself. And this is part of the story, okay? And this is what I don't understand about most folks. They just can't do this. If I don't believe the same thing that you believe, it doesn't mean I have to tear down your belief system. It's okay to just simply say, huh, okay. That was a loud one. Anyway, somehow this came up, the witch doctor experience. I was talking to David, and I asked him, did you ever have any experiences like that while you were over there? And he said, no, but it's funny that you mentioned that because I know someone that did. Okay, now from this point forward, this is David's story, not mine. I don't even know the guy's name, okay? So we'll call him, what should we call him? Oh, it's a bumblebee. Excuse my ADD for a minute. I've got 3 honeybee traps up around the property, trying to get some wild swarms. We have scouts in one of the hive, in one of the boxes, and I was over there looking at that today, and I was seeing her in there crawling around, smelling the honeycomb. I've got some deep trays in there from where we had bees last year, and so when they can smell that, they like that. That's a good sign. So I'm hoping she went back to wherever her hive is and does her little butt dance and sends us, you know, more scouts or the queen, a new queen and a swarm to that box. So fingers crossed. So we're going to call this guy Richard, because he surely was a Richard. Okay. Now by that, I mean, do this translation in your head. I saw this bumper sticker that said, Go forth and consume a satchel full of Richards. Yeah, this guy sounded like a real Richard, if you know what I'm talking about. So David met this guy while he and his wife were over there. They were out to dinner or something. He was an American. He was obnoxious. He knew everything. I mean, the only person that ever knew anything than Richard was probably the character Jittery J, who had a very unfortunate demise in Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 1. If you read that, you know what I'm talking about. So, well, since Jittery J's passed away because of his unfortunate demise, I guess Richard would have known more than anybody. He was arrogant. He was making a scene of himself publicly. He was arguing with some Filipinos who were working at the restaurant where David and his wife were having dinner. So being an American and being an American soldier, he felt like he should go out of his way a little bit and go over and maybe save this guy from getting, I don't know, ice picked to death or shot in the face in the middle of the restaurant, because that's what happens in Mindanao. And if you're not a Filipino citizen, okay, big deal. There will be no investigation. And that's just how it is, okay? You've got to know what you're doing when you're over there. So David went over to this guy and pretty much was telling him this. He's like, look, what's going on here? And he's talking about how they were charging him too much money and all this stuff. David said, look, keep your mouth shut, pay it, and just never come back here. If they have truly ripped you off, because that's how you got to do it there. You're going to, 9 out of 10 places will treat you fair and square. The 1 out of 10 will charge what we call the skin tax. They're going to up the price because it's assumed you're rich and you got it, so why is it a bad thing if they steal it from you? Well, this guy was upset that they're trying to steal it from him. So David told him, said, no, look, pay it and never come back. That's what you got to do here. You got to know how to get around here. You're going to get yourself killed. You will get killed. And of course, the guy's like, no, I have rights. No, you don't. You're not in the U.S., where everybody on U.S. soil is protected by the United States Constitution. You're in another country. You got no rights. Don't go around acting like you do. Let them, they're ripping you off. Pay it and just never go back. That's what you do. So anyway, David ended up taking this guy under his wing. Well, we got a lot of activity going on back here. You better be getting my 6. Keep watching. So David starts spending some time with this guy. Turns out the guy is there to get a wife. And the guy's like, why are you here? What? I don't understand this. And this is something David and I talked about this at the D-Day Memorial. I remember one time I sat down in a chair at a hair cuttery place. This is years ago, shortly after my wife and our son and I had gotten here. I sat down, and this girl's cutting my hair. And she's talking to my wife a little bit. She asked her where she's from. She said, Philippines. And so the girl cutting my hair was like, oh, so were you in the Navy? I said, no. And then the girl keeps cutting my hair. And she's like, but your wife's Filipino. I'm like, yeah, I know. I mean, I didn't see the connection until 20 more people over the course of the next few years asked me, oh, your wife's, were you in the Navy? For some reason, there's assumption that American guys who are married to Filipino girls are one of two things. Either used to be in the Navy and was stationed at Cebu, Subic Bay, which shut down in 1991 when I was a junior in high school. Okay, whatever. That's like forever ago, okay? Or they met online. I guess and so David and I were like, why is it so hard to just conceive in the mind's eye that we met our wives the same way everybody else meets their wives? You just happen to meet people when you're traveling. I was on vacation in the Philippines after an 18-month-long deployment. A year in Iraq, 6 months in a hospital. I got out in February. It was pissing the snow and the rain down in the Pacific Northwest where I was stationed. I wanted to go somewhere where there was sun and sand, so that's where I went. I happened to meet my wife there after I'd been there 3 weeks or a month, and I fell in love, and I stayed for longer than 21 days, something like 6 years. Came back and forth a couple times, but ended up staying there for years without coming back. Same thing with David. He's like, yeah, people always ask me, was I in the Navy, etc. But this guy, Richard, you hear that? They're saying, get on with the story. Get on with the story. Okay, so Richard was one of these guys that's just, it's like shopping for a commodity. He had heard Filipinos make good wives. I mean, whatever. Okay, so that's why he was there. And so David said, look, all women of all races make good wives. I've had people say to me, why don't you like, American women? They actually get more demographically precise than that. I'm just not going to say we're on social media. And I'm like, I do like American women. I've dated like a lot of them, married one, and see a beautiful American women every day when it's nothing against. I happen to be vacationing in this spot, and I met a girl I fell in love with, and now we're married. Been together 12 years. Feels like we just started dating. Still going to rock concerts. Yeah. So whatever this preconceived notion is, I don't get it. I never have, but I get it projected upon me on a regular basis. David did as well, and my other friends who are married to Filipino ladies get it as well. Don't understand it. But David tried to explain to Richard, look, these women are not commodities. They're human beings, just like the women back home. You can't come over here viewing them as if they're commodities and blah, blah, blah. Well, said, I'm just going to have to ignore him. I'm never going to finish this story. Okay? So Richard, it's like he's over there, he's online, he's on these chat site things, and he's just getting ripped off. Girl after girl after girl, excuse me. And David told him, what do you expect? So these girls know that people like you come here viewing them as commodities, so they go online and act like a commodity. And once they bleed you dry of all your money, that's when you find out they have husbands who are probably chatting with you most of the time when they're saying their webcam's broken. What do you expect? I mean, if you're going to treat another human being like a commodity, you're probably going to end up being treated like a commodity yourself. And when the ATM machine is bled dry, they're done with you too, Richard. So he said, look, he says, just go out among the general population and the general public and just meet people the way you'd meet people back home. Maybe you'll meet somebody that you fall in love with. Well, Richard actually ended up doing that by accident. There was one coffee shop I guess he'd go to every morning for his coffee. And there was this beautiful young lady there, about 20 years old. And I guess Richard was in his mid-30s or whatever. He actually just talking to her like she was a human being. Wow, go figure. And in time, they ended up liking each other. They went on a date. They started dating. But Richard still was just a Richard. He was like a whole satchel full of Richards, right? Arrogant. The girl was a Roman Catholic, which is common. It's the number one most predominant religion in the Philippines. Dearly grew up Catholic. Well, the guy had to make sure that she understood that was nonsense and that there is no such thing as a God. He was an atheist, and that's fine. Nothing, but he wanted to make sure that he did, if he was going to have a serious relationship with this young lady, she needed to understand that believing in God was the same as believing in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus and all that, because there's no such thing. I guess he was a software engineer or something like that, brainy guy, worked with computers, had the degrees on the wall. And David tried to tell him, he says, look, man, maybe your problem is not the ethnicity of the woman or the nationality of the woman. Maybe you're a Richard. Let her be herself. You don't have to bash her religion. Would you do that back home? Well, of course not. Girl would slap me in the face and go, why would you do it here? It's like he just refused to view even this girl he liked as a human being. So anyway, Richard ends up going to David one day saying that his wife or girlfriend, they weren't married, his girlfriend was having like this recurring nightmare, recurring bad dream, and she had told him that to get rid of these dreams, she had to go visit her local witch doctor, which was back in the province, like a 4-hour bus ride away through kiss-your-ass turns in the mountain filled with terrorists, Abu Saif, Moro Islamic Liberation Front, MILF for short, but they regret picking that name, the PNC, People's National Communist Party of the Philippines, throughout these mountains, right? And so David told him, says, look, if you want to have a chance with this young lady, you need to respect her culture, you need to respect her beliefs, you need to let her do what she wants to do, and if she wants to go back to her province to see the doctor, the black magic provider, it's part of her HMO, then you need to go with her and meet her family and be respectful. And he's like, What? I'm from the city. You know, I don't know what city. Let's pick one at random. Philadelphia, okay? I'm from Philadelphia. I can't go across, you know, those mountains, a 4-hour kiss-your-ass-turn bus ride with all those MILFs out there and then PNCs and then Abu Sayyafs. He's like, hey, how much do you know, David says, how much do you want this relationship to work? He's like, well, okay. So he ends up going. So he accompanies his young lady that he's dating to the witch doctor. And they're talking about dreams in their own language. And he's sitting there like, this was not in any university textbook I ever read when, I don't know, let's pick a college. University of Pennsylvania, they're Ivy League. It wasn't in my Ivy League textbook. This black magic isn't real, this witch doctory stuff. That's as artificial as God and all that other stuff. Santa Claus and Easter Bunny. Little did he know, the witch doctor spoke really good English. And she looked at him. She says, oh, you do not believe? You do not believe? I will make you believe. You want the bad dreams? And he, before he knew what was going on, she'd had her coconut that she made her hocus pocus come up out of in her hand and blew smoke in his face. He wasn't a smoker. Richard. It's like he's choking on a satchel full of Richard. Coughing like crazy. Those came from two distinctly different places. Wow. They're either like loving this story or hating it that it's taken me forever to tell it. Just like all those Richards in the comment section. Go forth and eat a satchel full of Richards. Okay, so anyway, they go back to the city, like that day. Richard didn't want to spend a night out there. They didn't have internet or running water or any of that. So they go back, staying at the really nice hotel where Richard was staying because he makes all that money as a high-paid software engineer, you know, all those degrees from University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League college. And that night, that very night, he has a nightmare. It's the worst dream he ever had. He had a dream he was laying in the bottom of a tub of water with his arms crossed over his chest, and he was drowning. And it's like he was fully aware of what was going on in this dream. He knew he was drowning. And he was like, why am I just laying here allowing myself to drown? You know, I can get up, I can swim away, I can fight my way out of this. And, but it's like he couldn't wake up. He'd just mumble and moan and grunt. His girlfriend was with him. She'd end up waking him up, and he'd wake up. And he was at this really nice hotel, had these really nice soft pillows. And he's looking around, the pillows are so soft, they're coming up around the sides of his ears, and he sits up and he's like, because when he woke up, he first thought he was drowning. He thought he was in that tub of water, and he realizes it's just his goose down pillows, you know? He's like, oh my gosh. And he thought, well, that woman got in my head, that witch doctor. That it's not hocus pocus, it's mind control through the power of suggestion. She said, you know, you're going to have a bunch of nightmares, blew the smoke in his face, and he believed it. Well, the next night, it happened again. And it happened again and again and again. And this is how David, the guy from the D-Day Memorial I met, even knew that it was happening. Because after it happened for like a week straight, he was talking to him. He's like, man, that witch doctor got in my head. David told him, said, look, Richard, you need to stop being a satchel full of Richards, and you need to go make an amends with that woman. You need to go out there and you need to apologize. That's all she wants is an apology. You don't have to start believing in this stuff, this hocus pocus, and act like you buy into it. Just be respectful, man. You know, it's like, you know, an ounce of honey will draw more flies than an ounce of vinegar. And honeybees. I wonder if I should put some. Okay. All right, back to the story. So, one day, David goes to where he usually runs into Richard, and he's not there. This coffee place. So he goes back the next day. He's not there. Third day goes back. He's still not there, but his girlfriend's in there crying. Now, the girlfriend had quit her job already, but she went in to talk to some of her former co-workers and inform them that her boyfriend, that rich American a-hole from Philadelphia, graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, Richard, was dead. How did he die? The damnedest thing, no one knew. Because he just, one morning, she woke up, looked over, he was laying like this, the pillows up around the sides of his ears, and he wasn't breathing. And she nudged him and shook him, and he just wouldn't wake up. She checked for a pulse, listened for his breathing. He was gone. So the authorities came in, and some CSI individual looked, and they were like, this is unexplainable. It's like he just stopped breathing. But it's like he was too young to have died of old age, and it's as if he died peacefully like this. And David said he remembered the nightmares, and it's like there was no sign or indication that there was any sort of, like, he struggled at all to wake up. You know, he's just laying there perfectly at peace with the pillows up around the side of his head, but it was as if he had drowned. He had simply stopped breathing. His heart stopped beating. His brain waves stopped working, all while he was in his sleep. The end. I mean, how else do you make a different ending than that? He's dead. The story can't continue. It's over. He died. The end again. I'm going to go back here and see what the heck's making all this noise back here. See y'all for more next time.